and welcome to Always Off Brand. I am your co-host, Summer Jubileer, along with Scott Oshman.
Good morning, Summer.
Hi. It's
Hi.
just the two of us today.
I know.
Haley is on vacay.
Is well-deserved, well-earned vacay, little PTO as the kids call it.
Okay, let's talk about the word PTO because it actually really pisses me off. Because you know what it is? It's a subtle reminder that the company's letting you take time off and they're paying you for it.
When did this start? I don't understand when this whole paid time off thing, the PTO thing started. No. We used to just call it like you're on vacation.
Out of office.
Yeah, out of office. Your holiday. Who cares whether you get paid or not?
I don't need to remind you that I earned this and the company is so kind to continue to pay me while I'm on PT. I hate that word.
I mean, I've never heard UPO. I'm on UPO. Unpaid time off.
That's called retirement or fired, either way.
I mean, what is this? And my daughters, God bless them, are constantly, well, I don't have enough PTO. Oh, I'm going to take, I'm taking PTO. I'm like, is it the Parent Teacher Association organization that I was part of? I don't know when this started. This is like the bi-weekly. When you had a call twice a month, it was called bi-monthly. Now it changed years ago into bi-weekly. I can't reason out the math. I can't connect the language with, I don't understand.
Every time I'm like, so it's going to be a bi-weekly call. It has to be like, so do you mean like twice a week?
Yes,
or
exactly.
No one knows what it means.
Exactly. Bi-weekly is 2. Bi is 2. That means 2. Weekly would be twice a week. I don't know where this got mixed up.
I don't know, but I refuse to say I'm on PTO.
What do you say?
I'm on vacation. I'm out of office. I'm sick.
I think we should adopt I'm on holiday. I'm on holiday.
I'm going to start saying I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
I work for a UK company. I can say I'm on holiday.
Yes, you do, love. You should start calling. You should, like we watch this great show, Vera. It's been on forever. And she goes, oh, love. And she calls everybody pet. Of course you do, pet.
Yeah.
You're going to call Matt pet?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So you know how we always talk about like the pop buy? And for those
the pop buy.
Who are like not familiar with the pop buy is like how back in the day people
get your mic. You go get into your mic. You're echoey. You're far away. Get right in there.
Sorry, I keep moving.
Yeah, there you go.
So the pop buy is when someone just comes by unannounced to your house and you're like, lovely. Like, do you want to go have a glass of wine on the patio? Want to stay for dinner? Like, come on in. So although the pop buy, I have not been able to fix. I still haven't gotten a lot of pop buys at my house, Scott. But I
knew this was coming at me. I knew that somehow this is going to be a shot.
But there's this other thing going around. People are talking about how like people used to have like their separate place to go. They had work, they had home, and then they had like the bowling alley, or they had their bar friends, or they had their card group or whatever. And I have my third place. And I don't think I've told you about this, but I have to talk about these guys because they started listening to the pod and I want to give them a shout out. So I have these fellas that almost every morning I sit and have coffee with at my local Starbucks.
You got to be kidding me.
They're these two gentlemen who have been sitting there and I wave to them, I'll see them in their Kraken gear or their Seahawks gear and yell, go sports. And
go sports. Okay.
And they're intimidating. Like they have a presence. They're kind of like the Godfather at the.
Are they retired gentlemen?
Yeah. Not really. You know what? Didn't know their last names until yesterday. And we don't really talk about work. We just chit chat about life. And I've been hanging with these guys for about a year.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah.
You have never told me. I mean, again, now we just call each other on either to or from an appointment. Yeah. You called me from the chiropractor. I called you for my haircut. Anytime I have an appointment of personal services, I'm just like, I got to call Summer and check in.
Yeah. And these guys, we just talk about life and like what's going on. And I wanted to give Kevin and Joe a shout out because Kevin told me yesterday, he was like, look, because again, I never even talked about the pod. Like, I don't even know. I'm trying to think like what we talk about. I sit down with them for at least 30 minutes. And he's like, I fall asleep listening to you guys now. And I was like, I'm so glad I'm able to be in your bedroom.
That's probably one of the highest compliments. I mean, we're back up to number 5 in the top 100 retail podcasts. I just checked yesterday.
You didn't tell me we dropped out of number 5.
Oh yeah, we dropped to number 7. We were in the top 10, and then we worked our way back up.
I haven't been on the show for a while, so
that is true. That is that's a data point I didn't consider.
Should have.
Well, hello and welcome to Falling Asleep with Summer. But to keep you awake, should we get to our fantastical guest?
Let's do it.
Brought on. I want to give you a shout out. This is a Summer Jubileer guest.
She
finally, 4 years, she finally gets a guest on the show.
Liar. That is not true. The first guest ever on Always Off Brand was brought to you by me.
Okay, 250 episodes, 2. You've brought 2. And I appreciate both of them.
I can name 5 off the top of my head
yeah, you're
right
right.
now.
Actually, I'm exaggerating. Okay, let's bring to the YouTube. By the way, we are on YouTube. Always Off Brand. You can just search it on the YouTube, by the way. And if you like any of this, again, we're long running. Just tell a friend, would you? Write a review. We don't have many Apple reviews. We have a lot of Apple reviews. We have a lot of 5-star reviews. We don't have a lot of comments. So I'm just it's the usual crap. Or like and subscribe to the channel. Blah blah blah. I hate saying it.
Or follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram.
You can leave lots of comments there. You can talk a lot of shit to us if you want. Feel free.
Summer talks a lot of shit to me on Instagram.
This is true.
It's fantastic. Let's add to the stage our great guest, and then listener. We'll get the music started. Let's get going here. Gotta let it sink in. You know how I like it. Let it sink in. Oh yes. Joining the program today is a topic and a guest, an expert in a field that we don't talk enough about. It is creative. It is art. It is creativity, is design. She's an art director of the Stars. She works for a large consumer packaged goods company. We might know it. We might not know it. Ladies and gentlemen, Juliana Arthuso coming to the Always Off Brand stage. Hello, Juliana.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. That was probably not a great introduction. I probably biffed on that, but that's okay.
It's okay. You can redo it later in editing.
Yeah.
So I was so excited.
See what I put up with, Juliana? I mean, this is unbelievable.
I was so excited to have you on. So yesterday, I'm meeting with my trainer, and he's like, "Hey, I got this new protein shake," and I was like, "Cool." And he like shows it to me. He's like, "Look, you can read all the ingredients." I don't care, but I'm like, "Cool." And he opens it, he drinks it, and then I notice he's not really drinking it later on. And I'm like, "Oh, so all those easily readable ingredients don't taste so good, do they?" And he's like, "No, they do not." He was like, "I just bought it because I had a football player on it and I liked the design." And then you justify like why you're purchasing it. And so I thought of you, and I'm like, how many times have you had to design something because you just need the consumer to get to it, which is your job, right? You have to bring in the consumer. It's product team's job to make the people, the consumer, like it, but it's your job to bring them in and get that emotional attachment. So I guess my question to you is, when are we going to add football players to our product packaging?
Oh my God. It's coming. It's coming. I can feel it. We just need to go a little harder on, the men's targeting, and that's all we need to do.
That's it. Just throw. Men are so simple. Just throw a football player on it. Our product will fly off the shelves.
We'll do a partnership with a cereal company too. Put it on the box. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
That's how you buy all your stuff, right, Scott?
100%. I just literally follow. Yeah, I'm a sporty, so I just buy whatever they're pushing. I buy it.
Well, Juliana,
I will say though,
go ahead.
Yeah, I do fall victim of that, old tale as well. I buy cute things. I think for women this is so cute. I need it. So everything that's well designed, whatever it is, I'll give it a try because you need to touch it. There's a tactile thing when you see something pretty or nice or well designed that you just want it. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm stoked to have you on today. One of the things we don't talk about enough here at Always Off Brand is the creative process. We all take creative for granted or don't. We either have good creative or we don't. And one of the things I have always struggled with in my career is how to work with the creative team and get them to create things that I need specifically for the Amazon channel. That isn't necessarily going to be what we use for paid search. It's not necessarily what we're going to use for Walmart or for Target. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what you're seeing with the differences between all the different omni-channel activations and how much creative actually has to be made and why.
A lot of creative has to be made for each channel. And there's always ways to use something very similar for an omni-channel versus Amazon, but will it work the same? Probably not. Sometimes we have these constraints because of budget or because, the workload of the team is just too much and you have to make these kinds of executive decisions, let's say, to, have something out there, which something is better than nothing. But ideally, you would want to cater to each channel, specifically to the data that you find for that works best for it. So let's say Amazon has lots of different crops for ads, right? You have to have an image that fits many specs if you're using a photo versus a render of a product, let's say, and usually photos do work best. So for these crops,
so photos, you're finding photos that you're taking are doing better than digital renders.
Yes, but again, we have to lean on our stakeholders, our partners, to come in with that data for us. In this case,
that's what the data is showing you so far.
Yes.
I see a lot of renders, man. I see a lot of rendering and product packaging, showing it if it's a retail item, how it's shelved. I mean, our client, I see a lot of rendering.
Amazon is funny too, because the UI of the site itself is very, I don't want to say barren, but it's very straightforward. It's very white, graphic, and then there's all of these banners with so many things happening, right? So sometimes seeing an ad that looks a little more native feels a little more trustworthy than seeing an ad with so many colors here and there. So there's that, finding that balance too of telling your story as a brand and making it feel like you're trustworthy and that you should click. So it is very special in that way. What's the reaction I'm seeing?
I wanted Scott to ring the bell because that is such a good tip. That is a huge pro
honestly,
tip.
Any chance you can to boss me around is just really a highlight in her morning.
I have to tell you, underneath my desk, I'm wearing slippers. I literally took my slipper off and was miming kicking him. Get the belt.
She wants her own sound effect machine, I'm not sure how that would go.
But that's huge. A lot of people don't. I don't have that eye. I don't see that. So when you're telling me this, I'm going, oh yeah, duh. But I don't see things the way that you see things.
Yeah. If you're building, let's say, a brand page for Amazon, for example, too, sometimes it's so much better to just have a native block that they offer that just shows the product. Because if somebody sees that, they think, and again, it's probably not exactly what they think, but the thought process is, this is ready for me to click. I know this is going to take me to that page and I can get it so fast, versus if you're clicking on an image, you kind of don't know where you're going to end up if you're on Amazon. If it's an ad on paid social or if you're on an e-com site, it's a little bit different of an experience. Amazon is very, very complex in certain ways.
It's constantly changing. I just noticed when I opened the app, right? They did a Saks Fifth Avenue now. They have a whole Saks Fifth Avenue. So I was, in just even the design of how they're presenting each tile now is different on the app. Yeah. Exactly.
This is long. So I'm showing the camera for those not watching us on YouTube. And now that the space that you have when you get onto Amazon, it used to just be I don't know, what, fourth of the bar, fourth of the page. Now it's taking up 3/4. And look at Noon's got a nice little ad right there. Boop.
Oh, wow.
That was an expensive little spot they got.
This is not bitter. I can't believe you did not spend them, Summer. That's your go-to.
This is new. Look at this movement.
Yeah, see, I'm seeing actually now, and just yesterday I was looking. So they have a new movie out, and so that first tile you see will be actually animated. It'll be video, so you're seeing more motion, you're seeing more movement and video in it. But not switching topics, but getting into it. I think one of the things that I've experienced, Juliana, which I love your perspective on, is when the commercial teams, when the sales teams or the account management teams or whoever is producing, right, the deliverable, they're making the request to the creative team. Why is it so hard? How do you teach me your language? Would you teach us your language? How do we talk to you guys? It's like finance, like anything. How do we make sure we get what we think we need? How do we talk to you?
Well, okay. So in our defense, there's a lot of lingo all of our stakeholders use that we hear it every meeting. We hear it every time, and we're just like, what is RI 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah. Like there's so many
acronyms out the yin yang.
Yeah. For creative, I almost everywhere I work, I try to eventually, after some heartache, of course, because we have so much stuff to do, create a library of words that we can use to communicate with each other. Because if I say render, this might mean one thing for me and another thing for you. It might be like a 2D render of a product that is just what we use on a PDP. It also might mean a 3D asset that can move and do, a bunch of cool things.
Show all sides of the product or something.
Exactly.
I know when you and I first started working together, and I still struggle with this, I consider lifestyle humans. And Juliana considers lifestyle like a human setting, but there's not actual humans in it. So maybe it's set in the bathroom or maybe it's set in someone's car. And I'm like, that's not lifestyle. There's no people in that. She's like, you asked for lifestyle.
That's a great example. That is such a great example.
Yeah. Okay. So in our case, when we say lifestyle, and this is internal, we mean that we're going to go with the specific photographer that does these pieces that feel more lifestyle, as in they're part of somebody's home. Usually our product photography that's a little more upper funnel is very ethereal and very not out of this world, but it has its moment as a hero, right? So you're not going to see a toothbrush by a product. It's not on that realm. So we call that upper funnel. And then the other one we call lifestyle. That was just nomenclature we decided to go with, but it is very confusing. And that's why I recommend, let's do just a little, translation dictionary for creatives and stakeholders so we can all understand each other. But it is hard. Going back to the question, it's easier when you have a groove. When you're starting with a team, it is really hard, right? You're going to have to find the ways to work with each other. But when you have a groove and you're using the same specs for everything, and it's good to find the person on the team that you trust so you can kind of translate what you're expecting and just give examples. That's the best way to kind of tell a creative what you want. You find an example you like that's out there and that's working. It's competitive research, right? You say, these are the specs. This is what we can and we can't do. Here's an example of a company that is being successful right now and how they did it. How do we translate it to our brand? Always the best way to go. We're very visual. So give us a visual and we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
Again, this is our own Haley Fortuno at Quickfire, who we call the Wizard. And she is the most literal creative I have ever worked with. Because if I have a concept, I want this, and I give her tiny elements, to her credit, this is to her credit, right? She comes back at me and goes, no, okay, you've given me this, but like, I'm not going to go on some other, I'm not going to interpret what you're saying, because she's like, tell me exactly what you want and I will produce that. Is this a common thing, or is just it's probably a me problem? It's probably an operator error.
Yeah.
Summer,
No, Very common. It is very common because design is subjective, right? And this is how, especially if a designer is a freelancer, there's a lot of heartache working with clients because you have an idea in your mind. And if you don't know how to communicate it, and that's not just you, it's anybody. If you don't know exactly how to communicate it, the other person isn't going to know. Think of it as, a young relationship. You have to find ways to communicate with each other. Otherwise, I can't read your mind, right?
I love it. Well, I think.
How about a 32-year marriage relationship?
I think you start reading each other's minds after a while. Like you're
yelling at each other.
My wife's
like, "You're such a bad communicator." I'm like, yeah, okay.
Oh, shout out to Aaron. So, what did I just write? How to give feedback. Living in I will say this, in the Pacific Northwest, people are not direct. Like, I am very curious what a creative feedback review looks like in Jersey versus Seattle, because I feel like in Seattle, people are very like, well, it's gorgeous. I love it, but it's just not quite what I was looking for. But I mean, if you don't have time, I understand. Like, it doesn't have to change, but if it could change, and like no one's just like, actually, this sucks. Like, let's redo it. How do we get there to just be honest with our creative? Because from what I've seen, for the most part, our creative team members that I've worked with in the last 4 years, they have a backbone and their feelings aren't getting hurt. But if someone told me that this piece of creative I just made isn't what they wanted, I would probably cry for the rest of the day and have to take PTO.
Well, and funny enough, you guys were talking about that because I've only lived in a PTO world and I think you've enlightened me. So I will be saying I am outie for this day.
I am outie. Yes.
So that's going to be the new thing.
I'm taking a brief holiday and it's going to be lovely. This is a great point. Because again, I'm only on my experience. So Haley doesn't take anything personally. Like when she creates a infographic or a static or something and the client doesn't like it or whatever, she literally could care less. She's just like, tell me what you want and I will produce it.
Yes. There's some people that are like that. There's some people that seem like they're like that, but they're actually taking it personally. There are some people that just get pissed off. So again, creatives are very sensitive and emotional, even though not all of them, of course, but even though it might not seem right away. Again, creative is subjective. You can come up with so many different ways to illustrate the same solution based on data. So the best way to give feedback that is straightforward and non-confrontational or non-subjective is basing your opinion on a piece of data. There's a little bit of trusting you have to do when you're working with a creative, because even though you are the expert of Amazon, you are the expert of your channel. If you're working with an internal team and people that are art directors and above, we are the experts of our craft, right? So if you say to us something very based in data, and that's why on my team, at least, we're always like, give us the data. What happened with that asset that we showed? Is because we want to know if a light background works better than a dark background, or if having a hand picking up a product drives that much more revenue than not having that hand there, or impressions, anything that we can grasp onto that can help us inform the next thing we're going to do. So if feedback is, I'm not sure about this color, I don't know if I like it, there's something off. There's nothing you can touch.
Are you listening to my calls?
Oh, this happens so much. And after a while, as a creative, you start decoding. When you work with somebody for long enough, you start decoding what they mean. And let me tell you, this happens internally too on the creative team. Sometimes you're showing this to your manager and your manager's managers. And there's some people that are very straightforward with feedback, and some people are just like, I don't like this, do something else. This will happen. And you kind of have to learn to find the solutions. And it is a struggle. It's always a little dance, but stakeholder to creative relationship, you can put so much to bed if you're just like, I don't think this is going to work because of A, B, and C data points.
Right.
And then we have to figure something out.
So taking the emotions out of it.
Exactly.
Because let's be real, like, I don't love everything that Red Bull puts out. You know, I don't love everything that other brands do. So if you're working for a company like that and you don't, when we're giving feedback, we always take it as if we're the consumer. And you have to take yourself out of it. So if like I worked at Red Bull, I could only look at the data because I would say no to probably everything that they produced.
Exactly. And it's hard to when you're working for a company that you are or you could be the target audience, because then you feel even more
empowered
connected or attacked by what you're seeing, right? So yeah,
that's not what moms look like.
Yeah.
We're going to take a very quick break, Juliana.
Yeah.
We have way more to get to because this is all self-indulgent, of course, as usual. Summer and I usually just have guests on to get our own answers. Really?
100%.
I want to know what are the biggest mistakes when you do a creative brief, right? For a project or for whatever, what are the biggest mistakes that people do nonstop that you have to deal with and you have to overcome and create? When we come back, I need to get better.
Hey, I'm Elizabeth Green from jungler.com, and you are listening to the Always Off-Brand podcast.
Okay, we're back with Juliana Arthuso, by the way, and I want to correct myself on that.
I'm just not going to say it because then I'll be right the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's one way to do it. So getting back to the question again, personal things, I think you guys get delivered, right? You get creative briefs, whether it's outlines, I don't know what you want to call it, some type of direction on either a new product, a new campaign. We're going to reshuffle our images, our carousels on Amazon, or we're doing changes to our brand store, whatever it is. Somebody's got to give you the guidance. And what are the biggest mistakes that over your career or what happens? I'm sure Summers are absolutely perfect when she does it, but what are the biggest mistakes? How can we help the creative teams?
I wouldn't say mistakes, but sometimes you get too much information or too little information. If
you sound like my wife, I either over communicate or don't communicate at all. Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, in the over communication sometimes can be even more confusing because, again, we are visual people. We need to skim through a brief and understand what the main points are. So if I am receiving the longest thing in the world and it's all like, typed in together with no breaks in the paragraphs, and you're trying to figure out the main takeaways from that, you're not going to find it. You can ask me to read it 3 times and I won't fully grasp what you want.
MG.
Yeah. So I will say always add visuals. Again, the examples are so helpful. If you don't have an example, it's a mistake.
See, there you go. If you don't have an example, it's a mistake. That's worthy of a bell.
Thank you. And the one time this is acceptable, like if it's a launch of something so new that there's no examples out there, you're pioneering something, then okay, don't give me examples, but give me maybe the contact of their creative team or something that will allow me to do the best for you, right? Because again, we don't read minds. I will say always have the specs. Always show us where this is going to live.
Yeah.
Very important too, because the context, thank you. The context of where it's going to land is really going to change what that creative is going to look like, right? If there's an example that's a little bit off Amazon, but if you're thinking of Instagram or Facebook or Meta, they have so many restrictions because of their native UI that if you make an image with a headline that's so far up top, it's going to be covered. So show us where it's going to live. So why it exists, also very important. Like, what is your main goal with that? Where it's going to live, the size it needs to be, and what is the call to action. Those are the main things. And then, of course, example.
There you go. I mean, the specs always drive me crazy because it's got, well, what are the specs? I don't know.
Why don't you know?
I don't know. I should know. I just don't remember.
Do I need to send you my creative guide that I made a creative guide for Amazon that has every spec?
That's very sweet. Yes, I'd like that.
I'll share that with
wonderful.
you.
Would you?
Got it. Yeah.
How much is that going to cost me? A drop by? Pop by?
Pop by. I need you to pop by. I'm going to print it, so you have to come out and actually physically get it.
I love it. I love it.
All right, Juliana, there's been buzz for years that AI is coming after creatives' jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I often show you just like how dangerous it is out there with what Amazon's creating. And we look at it and we all laugh. Tell me, how are you using creative? Because I know the team has found ways to use it to be more efficient. And where do you think it's going in terms of people maybe not hiring an agency or an internal team member to manage creative because they'll just use UI or AI?
Those examples will definitely happen, right? There will be companies out there that will be fully based in AI. Living in San Francisco, I already see a lot of buses passing by. There's one that horrifies me. They decided to make this AI face that the mouth is open and it bites onto the window of the bus.
Like Pac-Man style?
Yeah, but it's like a person's mouth. And it's something about like, don't eat, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I looked at it, so maybe their creative is working in a weird way, right? Like I looked and I definitely had a reaction. That's a way to go about it. And that image is definitely AI. And I think it's terrible. And I probably wouldn't use them, even though I might not be the target audience. But
we're going to get a buzzer on that. We don't like that one. If you don't like it, we don't like it.
Thank you. I will say, it will depend on the approach that you want to go for your brand. So if you want to have a brand that is very in touch with the consumer, wants to make you feel comfortable and that I'm just a person talking to another person, let's chat, I have something for you, you probably want to stay away from creating like image generation from zero with AI. You can always use AI in so many other ways that are so helpful. On our team, we use it a lot for image extensions. As I said, there are so many different crops that we have to cater to. So when we take a photo, when we're in a photo shoot, we do keep in mind like, hey, this is going to be many different specs and sizes and crops, but we can't account for a very wide banner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So expanding that image with AI is awesome. It's so helped my life at work.
Right.
It makes our lives more productive and straightforward, but I wouldn't go from that to just creating a completely different background for, again, what we call lifestyle, because it won't look realistic. There will be something that's still a little bit off.
Yeah.
You know?
You'll be staring at like, what is that, like 3 eyes on that fish in the water?
You know, the Photoshop fails that we used to see in magazines back then as in like 10 years ago when somebody lost their belly button?
Yeah.
Kind of what AI is replacing right now in a way.
Right.
But you see it in large scale. I'll never, the Super Bowl, there was like Budweiser generated a full
Budweiser?
Coca-Cola. Maybe
it's Coca-Cola. Yeah.
That was insane. It I don't know where this is going.
They were already cartoony, right? So they were trying to be human.
Yes.
Images. And I think that's where like the big difference is. I also think if you're trying to build a brand based on authenticity, which I feel like we're seeing a lot, that's what Gen Z wants. A brand that's about beauty or simplicity, like AIs can't create that now. I don't know if it ever will.
So as a senior art director, I mean, are you leaning into AI as far as just your profession and trying to, where do you sit on this?
I would say on my team, I'm the one that drives this the most. I want to make sure we're up with the trends and we're understanding exactly what's coming out there and how we can use it in our advantage. AI, at the end of the day, is not something that you can just like tell you exactly like, do this for me. Like I'm talking to you guys right now and let it do its thing. You have to learn how to prompt. You have to learn how it can help you. You still have to manage it. And that's been more complicated than I initially expected. There's a specific way you have to communicate whenever you're prompting too. But besides that, I just want to make sure that all the tools that are out there are used by us, and we are innovating in any way possible within the constraints of abiding by what we believe in as a brand and as a creative team. We
Juliana,
don't,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, we're just not in a place where I think it would replace anybody's job. If anything, we'll need more people to create these assets.
To
Love
harness
that.
it.
Yeah.
Juliana, we love to give recommendations here at Always Off Brand. Any software that you're really liking right now?
I would say for creatives, Adobe Express has been coming out with a lot of stuff. If you have an image that you want to turn into video, they have a software out there that helps. And I've been playing around with that. Again, it's a little, to find something that you can actually use is a little more of a process that you would think. Sometimes when you do, as a creative, when you do have the tools to just do it yourself, you'll probably just end up doing it yourself.
Yeah.
But that's a fun one to explore. They also have the image generation. If you have, let's say, a render that you want to create an image around it, like a background around it, you can play around with that. Again, with the expectation that it's not going to come out looking like a photo that's on brand for you, but play around and see if that's something you want to, use.
Awesome.
Yeah. I would say Adobe is the one I rely the most on right now.
I'm get a little call back for AOB longtime listeners. Andy Orso, ORSOW, framer. He's created these videos out of dust, completely AI. He did this one about this deli, wet meat deli. It was hysterical.
I am Ned Spacey, no relation, owner of Ned's Wet Deli. Come on down for our grand reopening. We're the only deli specializing in submerged meats. We got chicken, we got ham, turkey, spiced ham, black forest ham, and for the vegetarians, we got beans. We now replace the water more frequently so you can ignore those old news articles. And for the moisture curious, try our new sprinkle corner. Cold cuts spritzed every 10 minutes like the produce section of the grocery store. And this month only for the grand reopening, we're doing bread. So come on down and whet your appetite at Ned's Wet Deli with me, Ned Spacey. No relation.
It was so funny and so good. If you want to see, if you don't have brand guidelines and a bunch of stuff, if you want to see this thing to the next level, I recommend Andy Orso, who's been on the show. We need to get him back because he has just created some funny, great stuff. But that's okay. So we're not going to lose our jobs. Great. Check. Yeah. Moving on.
So speaking of jobs, what is your stance on internal creative team versus hiring agency and just using external support?
I believe it all depends on your budget, the size of your company, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
If you're somebody with a marketing background that can speak to a creative and you're just starting out, get a freelancer that, has some experience, and that might be enough. If you're somebody that wants to kind of have this running machine that you don't have to manage a lot, and know that they know what they're doing, get an agency. Agencies tend to be very pricey. So you're paying a premium.
What's a price? Give me an example. What's a monthly retainer?
Oh my gosh, girl, I'm not good with the numbers. I'm not number girl.
A spot like that.
What do you think? Like, is it $10,000 a month? 5,000?
It's more than that.
It's more than 10.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Creative agencies? Are you kidding me?
I don't know. I don't buy
$50,000
creative agencies. $1,500 a month.
50. And there's boutique agencies. There's big agencies. There's so many agencies out there that there's like freelancers that go as agencies, but they're actually just one person. There's, you can find a range.
Wow. Okay.
But it's pricey. It's a premium for sure. So I don't know, between agency and freelancer, I trust the freelancer experience a little better.
Interesting.
but that's from, a creative perspective.
Yeah.
I will say, though, there's such huge value in having an internal creative team that understands exactly what you need, and you don't have to keep repeating yourself or well, you always have to repeat yourself a little bit, but there's an expectation there that your success is going to be my success when there's an internal team.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
They have skin in the game.
Well, they also know the brand there's a lot of there's just a lot of things that are just unspoken, right? There's a lot of things that you just know the brand guidelines, the things, what's going to work and not going to work. To try to communicate that with an outside third party and it's just a pain in the ass. It's just more time suck.
And you can't have a blend, right? You can have a couple of people internally, and maybe you outsource for email and website, or I don't know.
Well,
as long as the creative team is the one doing that management to make sure everything looks cohesive,
there you go. And see, that's what I see a lot in maybe a little bit smaller brands is we have a saying, silos equal sadness. Well, they have siloed their freaking creative. The e-com person who's doing D2C, Meta, or whatever, they've got their creative agency. Then the marketplace person has their creative. Then they have it's like, my God. And then you wonder why the consumer sees 17 different things.
And they don't look like the same brand sometimes. Yeah,
exactly. Which kind of leads us into this other one. And maybe we'll get you out of here on this. How, from the creative side, how do you think about these different channels? You kind of alluded to it earlier, but if you're out there listening to this and like, I want to make sure that I get the most and more efficient, either an agency, internal, whatever it is, but I need stuff for Amazon. Okay. But I need stuff for Meta. I need stuff for PMax on Google SEM. I need stuff. How do you translate that?
Again, it's really understanding what the channel needs and what your stakeholders are coming to you with in terms of information, right? If we have done a campaign in the past and that campaign showed that this asset looked good on PMax, worked great, this asset didn't work as well on Amazon, that's a huge learning. Yeah. But each channel will give the consumer a different reaction. Something that you're seeing when you're searching on Google or using a Google tool in general is much more out of sight, out of mind than something that you're doing when you're actively shopping on Amazon and you're kind of open to anything that comes your way, right? Sometimes I'm shopping on Amazon for a random, I don't know, like a cat scratcher. And then I see that there's a new, I don't know, blow dryer that I didn't know they came out with the new one. It's right in front of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do I need a blow dryer? Amazon is much more consumer inducing than any other channel out there right now.
Well, you're on Amazon to shop, right? Like you're not necessarily on Google to shop or on social media to shop.
Exactly. Even though social media nowadays is very product heavy too. I think Amazon is the number one on that. So the assets that you're showing there are going to be very different than what you're showing anywhere else, which can be much more inspiring than Amazon.
Oh, so that makes me think. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
What about from your perspective? You support also, and they're getting better. Maybe this is a dumb question because I just lie. TikTok, doing creative for TikTok, I think is really fascinating, and I think once they perfect the sauce, they do a great job, in my opinion, of their creative ads because they don't feel like ads. They just don't even feel. You don't feel it. You don't know until you're like it's either too late or you're like, oh, this is an ad. What do you think about that, or do you have anything to do with that?
Yes. Well, that's a great example, right? Like to show the difference between how each channel deserves its own attention and its own assets. And wherever there's symbiosis, we can always use them. But if you compare an ad for TikTok and an ad for Instagram, they're both social media. You're both mindlessly scrolling, right? Yeah. But the experience is so different that on TikTok, you're going to get something real and raw and you expect it. If you don't get that, it's going to be jarring. On Instagram, things are still a little more curated, even though they try to go for the realness. Yeah. They're still a little more polished, curated. You want to see something nice or cool, you get a little more possess out of Instagram. If you swap the two, maybe what's on TikTok could work on Instagram. The other way around won't work. So that's something to keep in mind too.
That's a good tip. So what works on TikTok may work on Instagram, but what's on Instagram will not work on TikTok.
Yeah, depending on what it is now. Like if you get
that
a
makes
nice
sense.
photo.
I'm not a TikTokie, so I'm not on there, but I can see from what I can tell, it does not look like it's so different.
Yeah, it really is.
Juliana, if somebody wants to follow you, where can we find you? All those things. I mean, the linky, as I call it, the LinkedIn, the linky.
God,
Thank you for accepting my invite, though, my connection. I appreciate that.
Of course. Yes, I am on LinkedIn. You can find it with Arthuso Juliana. I'll be there. Chat with me. Love chatting, as I said. Instagram is just, personal things. I do a lot of home decor. And
wait. I don't think you told Scott, like her house was in a magazine.
Wait, what?
Yeah, yes. She's a big deal.
My apartment was featured on Apartment Therapy. I actually have a feature coming up soon as well for the San Francisco apartment.
Oh,
I need her to come up and fix up this mess. Like,
wait a
get up
minute.
here.
You need your office redone.
I think it looks great out there. I don't know what you're talking about. I love the plans and all, but
I had to clean my desk for summer. She gave me shit last time.
It was distracting.
Nice. God.
Let's not confuse crafty and decor with organized. I am not very organized at home, I have to confess. But yes, so my personal Instagram is JOUJEE, Juji.
Wait,
with an underscore.
Say it again, because I'm gonna go. I don't follow you. JOU Juji.
Yeah, JEE.
It's like Jubileer. It's like Jubal G.
Look at you with your curly hair. Look at your apartment. You're so cute. She's such a big deal. You guys go follow. So JOUJEE _.
Yes, that's just a lot of personal stuff. There, I'm starting a business, so you'll see a little bit of that out there as well. Lots of lifestyle, sustainability, crafty things, just being a girl out there. And
crushing it.
Thanks. Of course, LinkedIn is where to follow to see all the design things I come up with. And
that's fantastic. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for coming on. Summer, shout out you for bringing it into our lives.
Woo!
We will be back with some sort of wrap up. I'm not really sure what it's going to look like today, but we'll be back right after this.
What's happening? This is Todd Fletcher.
Hey, it's Frank Zampardi.
We're here from 660 Partners, hanging out with the good people of Always Off Brand.
Oh, that was so great. It was like a breath of fresh air to have a conversation around something besides like how much we're struggling on Amazon.
I know about KPIs and blah, 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 and conversion rates and blah, blah, blah.
I hope a lot of people got things out of this, because at the end of the day, your creative is so important. Like when I'm looking at my creative and performance, when she's talking about KPIs, I'm looking at my click-through rate. If my click-through rate sucks, I'm going back to my creative team. Like, let's regroup. If my click-through rate rocks, creative's off the hook. I don't need to talk to them. I need to figure out why I got the consumer to click, but now they're not converting. So what's happening? So I loved how she kept bringing it all back to data.
Yes. Yes, because she understands, she takes herself, it's so subjective, but she's like, I might have loved it, but if it didn't perform, it didn't perform. So I have to just kind of take myself out of it, which I think is so important. Plus, we didn't really get to this, but I mean, the sheer volume, because of all the digitalization, because of all the channels, I don't even know how they do it. The sheer volume of content necessary. Yeah. Is just mind-blowing.
Well, and what's wild to me is that 5 years ago on Amazon, it didn't have to be very custom. And now we're trying to get, like, if they search for this like 4-word search term, what are we going to show them? We can't just show them our regular branded ad. We now need to show them an ad of a woman picking up the cell phone and putting it in her purse, because she's looking for phone cases that fit in purses. I don't know. But you have to be so specific, and it's creating more and more. Thank goodness creative isn't like something physical because our landfills would be filled with it.
Oh my gosh. It's ridiculous. We didn't even get to, streaming TV and all the different requirements and creative work that has to be done to satisfy all these different, because you're getting into broadcast and you're getting into requirements of broadcast, which are different and all these other stuff. We could get into that. We'll have her back.
I just will have to have her back because we found our creative gal. And why does that matter, Scott?
Because people matter.
That's right. And you are listening to Always
Off
Brand. Please like, please subscribe, please share. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Hey there, this is Haley from Quickfire, and they want me to read this so you know what this podcast is part of and how to find out more if you want. Always Off Brand is a production of Quickfire LLC and a part of the Learn and Laugh series on the Quickfire Podcast Network. For more information, go to quickfirenow.com. Have a good one, and thanks for listening.